As we talk about gender, you are going to have to bear with me because I'm lucky enough to teach a semester-long course on sociology of gender. So I kind of am trying to resist the urge to pack everything in all to this lecture, but I know we don't have all day. And so I have one quick thing to ask you. So you see all these adorable pictures of babies, and I want you to take a second and look at all of them and decide if they are a boy or a girl, right? So the baby in the upper left-hand corner, the ones in the middle, the one in the lower right-hand corner, those cheeks, oh my goodness. If you can't figure it out, that's completely reasonable because I actually just Googled gender-neutral baby faces and put them together into a collage to kind of get you to think about how arbitrary gender is, that you can't necessarily tell right away, and how much does it really matter to these babies, right? It doesn't matter at all. It might matter to their parents. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But think about what age that it starts to matter. What age do these babies start to realize what the implications of their gender is? And so if you also look at the question at the top, there's something very wrong about it. In fact, when I was just speaking a second ago, I already corrected it. And so that idea of, is it a boy or a girl? Hopefully what you can see there being kind of problematic is the word it, right? Because if we use the word it usually means that we're dehumanizing something. And so when we don't know what to do as far as gender pronouns, we can go to, are they a boy or a girl? Which, like I said, I just said a minute ago without even thinking about it. So this idea of gender oftentimes starts well before these adorable babies are even the, 6 to 12 months that they are probably in these photos. And one of the more recent societal phenomenon, if we kind of think about the sociological imagination and the intersection of history and biography, one thing going on in society, especially with Pinterest being in existence for what now, maybe 6, 7 years, is the idea of celebrating finding out a baby's gender. So you will possibly have your ultrasound, and as opposed to having the ultrasound technician tell you on the spot whether you are having a biologically sexed baby boy or girl based upon genitalia, they would instead stick it in an envelope that you might take to a bakery to have a cake made that has a color inside, or maybe you would hand it off to a friend or family member, and then you would all gather for a gender reveal party. And so I want to invite you to a gender reveal party, thanks to all of the images I've actually pulled off of Pinterest. So when we think about gender, a lot of times we think about those colors, blue and pink. And so lots of blue and pink desserts. You might have he or she bars. You're probably not going to look at a Hershey bar the same way. You can have different colored punches that people can be drinking, and that kind of is the way that they vote whether they think you're having a boy or girl. And then you have a cake, right? And so when you cut into that cake, what's inside? It's usually either blue or pink, indicating that you're having a boy or a girl. Maybe you're not going to have a party, but you want to take some pictures for social media. And so some things people have done is like drop out stuff from boxes to find out, or pop a balloon at a party full of confetti, or have an older sibling open a box full of party blue or pink stuff. Or I guess you could blindfold each other and squirt each other with paint, indicating that you're having a boy or girl. Not that I'm judging, but that seems pretty messy to me. The other thing I want to share with you are invitations to these gender reveal parties, because I think they show how opposite we perceive genders to be. And so we have tutus or ties, quarterback or cheerleader, boots and bows, cupcake or stud muffin, lures or lace, ruffles or rifles, guns or glitter, and pistols or pearls. Lots of weaponry in these things. And so this shows you the reason that I just had this little, 2-minute gender reveal party during our lecture is to show you how one gender cancels the other gender out. Like if you are a boy, that means you're a boy, and that means you are not a girl, and vice versa. If you are a girl, it means you're a girl and you are not a boy. And that's the way that both biological sex in a lot of ways and gender operate in our society. And notice that I'm now starting to separate the definition or the words biological sex and gender, because gender is not necessarily biological, as we're about to discuss. So with that ultrasound, like I mentioned, that was the first time that I said biological sex, that an ultrasound tech is checking genitalia, so checking to see if the baby in utero has a penis or a vagina. So those biological sex aspects of our body. And so what biological sex is, a sociological definition of biological sex, is the application of socially agreed upon biological criteria. And so that would be our chromosomes, that would be our genitalia, that would be the parts of our body. That's our biological sex. But I want to focus you in on two words in this very short definition. I guess it's three words, socially agreed upon. Here is the thing, even about biological sex in relation to the way society works. Yes, I am not debating the fact that there are different body types, right? People have different chromosomes, they have different genitalia. 1% of our population is intersexed, which means they have some kind of combination of both biologically sexed male and female chromosomes or genitalia. But by and large, the vast majority of our society is one biological sex or the other. But we put labels on these bodies, right? So we have a male body with a penis, and that's what we consider a biologically sexed male body. And then we have a female body. And so the thing is, in those labels, male and female, man and woman, that's a socially agreed upon aspect of this. We've labeled people, and then the label of male or female is what is charged with all of the social norms, with all of the details and symbols and power structures and everything else that go along with it. And so hopefully you can see that, yes, we absolutely have human bodies, but the social construction that we put on top of these bodies is where we really get the idea of what society means to say somebody is male or female. So talking about humans, I actually want to switch to animals for a quick second so that we can start to see how human bodies are fairly similar, whereas animal bodies are not necessarily similar. And so you can see different colored birds. You can see gorillas, right? I'm not necessarily the biggest animal expert, so gorillas in the right-hand corner. And then in the left-hand corner, that little picture is actually elephant seals. And so when you look at those two elephant seals, that's not like a mom and a baby or something. That's actually a male elephant seal and a female elephant seal. So the male elephant seal is 8,157 pounds. I'm looking at my notes. I don't have this memorized. And a female is 1,543 pounds. That's a 530% difference between male and female elephant seals. So if we look at average human males and females, the average male is 5'9", about 195 pounds. The average female, 5'3", about 166 pounds. That's a 17% difference. So really, when you look overall at the grand scheme of how we present as human beings, that yes, we have different genitalia and chromosomes, but our bodies are fairly similar in size and shape for the most part. But you can see how different some animals are, right, in their size and shape. Imagine if human men walked around and they were 530% bigger than women. I mean, that would mean that they would be like, what, 15 feet tall, something like that. So then we have to think about the social construction of what we do to our bodies when we have relatively similar human bodies to try to make them look different, right? Whether it's trying to make sure that we have teensy tiny waists or we have big broad shoulders and all of these different things. We do a lot to our bodies and envision a lot in our bodies as far as differences to try and think about males and females being different, when really, honestly, human males and females fairly similar. Elephant seals, not so much. So one of those ways that we try to differentiate ourselves is by gender. So I want to give you a definition of gender. I would recommend writing this down for your assignments because it's a great way to start to kind of analyze the way you have used gender, the way you see gender in the world. And so this is a gender theory by Weston Zimmerman, and it has some interesting ideas on how gender works. And so the first one is that gender is routine. And so if you think about your routines, the things that you do over and over and over again, gender is a routine. You do it over and over and over again every single day, and you do similar things every single day. Those are the social norms in relation to gender. The other thing is it's very methodical. And so methodical means that you think about it. Now, you don't realize that you're thinking about it, but you do think about it. Now, women are socialized to probably be more methodical in their gendered performance in some ways than men. And so think about this. I am a fairly low maintenance female. I certainly love all kinds of girly stuff like colors and patterns and cute shirts and patterned skirts and that kind of thing. But I'm not a real hair and makeup kind of a person. But even in my not very hair and makeup kind of a way, I've got the eyebrow pencil to kind of fill out that corner of my eyebrow that doesn't really fill out on its own very well. And I have like kind of frizzy curly hair. And so, I have a diffuser, like this kind of sock diffuser thing that actually is working pretty darn well. And a two different kinds of hair stuff. I, have thought through and have read about the fact that washing my hair every other day is kind of the best and all these things. The reason I'm telling you about these arbitrary things that you don't care to know about me is because you can see the thought process. So this is how I get my hair to look the way that society says my hair should probably look. This is the way that I get my face to look. Like, for instance, I just turned 41 this week. So now, because I'm going to be, increasingly an old lady, I better make sure that I keep an eye out for wrinkles and age spots and all of that stuff. And so I've got all of the face washes and the face washing brush and the creams that actually are really nice. They feel fantastic and they make my face smell like hippies dancing in a field of wildflowers. So I'm all over that. But the idea is that methodical. I'm thinking through it. So you think through what you're doing as far as your gender performance, what you wear, how you treat your body, how you present your body. So again, I'll stop there, but hopefully by hearing me go on and on about these little details, you can see what are the details that you're paying attention to, that you're thinking about. The other aspect of gender is that it's a reoccurring accomplishment. So you have your routine, you're thoughtful about it, and you accomplish it every single day. I will have woken up this morning and gone to bed tonight, and all day long, I will have accomplished being a woman. And the other part about it is that people will instantaneously, they see the gendered aspects that they recognize as symbols in our society, they will see my accomplishment of being a woman. You will see your accomplishment of being a man. Not everybody is afforded this accomplishment when you think about it. Not everybody always fits neatly into those gendered choices that we have, male or female. And so if somebody is more androgynous, if somebody is an individual who is presenting not in a cisgender way. Cisgender means you're fitting neatly into the male and female categories. Rather, they are identifying as more, in some ways, transgendered. And maybe then because the individual is transgendered, you can't instantaneously categorize them because you have to think as human beings, we're trying to categorize you right away. They don't necessarily have the privilege, because it is a social privilege, of having that accomplishment that people aren't questioning them. And so a reoccurring accomplishment means that you've accomplished gender in a way that society buys. And then finally, it's managing behavior in light of normative ideas for one sex category. So if you think a couple, 3, 4, I can't remember now at this point, lectures back when we discussed social norms, and actually in that slide was an image of how women were sitting. One woman sitting very straight and straight backed and with her knees together, and the other woman kind of slouched and her legs spread. Those, again, remember, were examples of norms. And so that idea of what are the norms for your sex category? How are you supposed to act as a woman or a man and fitting into them? For instance, being a male, males are socialized that emotion is kind of seen as weakness. Quite honestly, females are socialized about that too. But it's more socially acceptable for a woman to tear up over like a sad movie or something. A man tearing up and crying is probably going to be teased or kind of socially punished in some way, like treated like lesser than in relation to his behaviors, because that's not a male norm. So I've been talking about all of this social construction. And so social construction is shared assumptions about reality. And it's a social phenomenon or category created and developed by society through cultural or social practice. Gender is a social construction. We share these assumptions about the reality of gender. The reality is human beings and their bodies are not very far apart as far as biologically male and female sexed individuals. Remember, that's why I gave you the example of the elephant seals being 530% bigger than their opposite sex. We don't really have as much of an opposite sex as we try to act like we do in society as far as the social construction. And we socialize women and men to be vastly different. That's social construction. We are building that. Cultures build gender in various ways. Societies build gender in various ways. And history builds gender in various ways. It's a very different thing to be a male or female in our current time period than it is in years past, and that will continue to change. Another term I've been kind of referring to and want to define is binary. And so that is a system with two. And so I've been talking about gender in relation to the fact that it's a binary. It's very opposite. So that's what a binary is, a pair of opposites. And so when we look at the gender binary, that means there are only two types of people. And so there's female people who are feminine, and there are male-bodied people who are masculine. And that can be problematic, like I was just saying, when you don't necessarily fit into this binary. If you don't fit neatly into this either or, one or the other, then society kind of acts like there's not as much of a place for you. Thankfully, in our current time period, that's starting to change, which really matters a lot to people who do not necessarily fit into the gender binary. But I want to show you one more example of the gender binary. When you think about it, the gender reveal party was very binary. And then this is actually the work of a graduate student who was realizing, as she was doing a graduate degree in photography, that her young daughter just loved the color pink. And so what she did was she did artistic works with photography with children and their belongings, so that you could take a look at how strong the gender binary is, how much we categorize our world as pink and blue, and that those are oftentimes kind of the only choices that you can see. So what we are moving towards in society, which is good for a lot of people to have more gendered freedom than having to fit into these strict gender binaries, is the fact that gender is in some ways a continuum. And a continuum is a mode of thought which pays attention to the degrees of difference between opposing poles. So it's no longer that we have strict definitions of masculinity and femininity. And so there's some not necessarily blurring, but just more freedom in our definitions of masculine and feminine. And so when you have a continuum, it's a way to deconstruct binaries. And so the idea is that you don't necessarily have to fit into that narrow definition, that you can start to have more freedom to create your own definition of how it is you want to socially construct your femininity or masculinity.